Father, I pray that you move in this place, God, that you do what you do, that you move me how you want to move me, and that, God, you move all of us away from where we are and closer to where we're called to be. I pray your spirit moves in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Receiving issues. It's pretty crazy because I was thinking today how we as humans are born asking for stuff. You know, like even before we could speak, we want stuff. You know what I mean? Like you're just born and you're like, that's it, milk. Now, I was warm, I was happy, feed me. Like, that's just how it goes. Like instantly, I'm like, how do you know? Like just, we want stuff. And then as you get a little bit older, you want more stuff. And it's just like kids just always want something. They always want candy. What is it with kids and candy? Like I don't really like candy anymore. But when I was a kid, that was like my drug of choice. You know what I mean? Like candy was everything. And my kids like they're obsessed and like they always want something. When I walk through the doors after being away, there's no like, Dad, I love you. Dad, how are you? There's, Dad, did you bring me a surprise? No, not even a hug. They're going straight for the bags, right? Then you go to the next stage, they start like watching TV and like advertisers are evil. Because you got these little cartoons and next thing you know, they start hiding these useless pieces of junk toys that you need to buy. Like the Pogo Stick 5000, which is the same as the 4000 and the 3000 and the first one. It's just got hypercolors on it. You know what I mean? And like you've got to get it because your kid's got to have it. And like we go throughout life and then it's like what clothes we got to have. And then there's always something. In fact, we're pretty much always looking to the next thing. And I feel like the next thing just makes you want more of the next thing. Because like when you get it, do you ever feel like it's not enough? Like it just never feels like it satisfies. But something in us is driving it. What is it in us? And this is the thing. There is an appetite that we try to suppress or we try to fill with things. But what if I was to tell you that your appetite for things wasn't actually your appetite for things? Like, and can I just give you a forewarning for those that, I'm looking through the crowd. I don't think many people have children. But let me give you a forewarning. Start saving now for summer break. Because like, we would bring groceries home and they got raptured. Like literally, I know what the rapture is going to look like. It looks like bringing groceries home with 4 boys. 3 boys, 1 girl. That's what it looks like. It's like, gone. And all the good stuff goes. None of the vegetables. So then I get to the fridge late and all I've got is celery. Like, where are those cupcakes? Just crumbs everywhere. Like, it's just gone. Like, they just take stuff. But when they're at home, they're actually just bored. And because they're bored, they're like, I'm hungry. You're like, you're not hungry. Go draw something. I've drawn 5 pictures. Draw 6. A big one. Just keep drawing. At this point, I don't even care if you draw on the walls. Just stop eating. Draw food that you'd like to eat and imagine you're eating it. You're hungry, draw a burger, you know? Like, they just don't stop eating. And the reality is they're just bored. And I think you and me have an appetite that we've misconstrued to be wanting things. And it's not wanting things, it's actually doing things. Because you were made for purpose, and because you were made for purpose, contribution will never fill you. And so you keep getting, and you go to the next relationship, and you go to the next thing, and it's never enough, and then you keep getting, and before you know it, when you've got enough things and it doesn't fill you, you start to feel pretty low. And I want to put to us that maybe you and I have issues with misplaced appetite. I think our appetite is actually for purpose, and we think it's going to be filled by collection. It's actually to give our life to something, not to have our life filled with something. I heard this quote, and I think it was Martin Luther King Jr., if I go through my just notes in my head. And he said, if you're not willing, something to the effect of, if you don't know what you die for, then you don't know what you're living for. Your life is never going to be filled with what you get. Your life is absolutely always been hardwired to give. And it started all the way back in heaven when God breathed you And it says that, like, basically, everything he created, he stopped and he said, it is good. When God brought you, he was like, what if he thought of you as like a gift? You ever notice parents, how excited they are about their newborn? More excited than any of us all the time, right? You're like, what's the name? It's a secret. It's a surprise. I'm like, I don't really care. I'm not going to be surprised because it's your kid. It's James. Yes, but we spell it different. Okay, cool. I don't know. You guys are like, honey, we never tell him anything. But like, the truth is, like, they're just excited about it. And they like call it a gift. And it's their gift, but sometimes not our gift. We don't want the gift that does number twos and we got to change them. You know what I mean? We don't want that gift at the restaurant when we're having a romantic night. We don't want that gift. Take that gift back. But I think God is like a proud father. And when he put you in on this earth, he truly understood that he was gifting the earth with somebody. He was gifting the earth with you. But only you in your full function, only you in the way you were intended to be. Not the you that's been through stuff, that has let the stuff get into you, not just go through it, because you can't go through things without some of it sticking. As much as you'd like to be like, no, I've learned lessons. There's always something. But God gifted you on earth because he was like, man, there's a little aspect of heaven that needs to make its way to earth and it's missing. And first of all, before I finish that, you got to know this, that everything on earth is nothing but a replica shadowing of what is in heaven. Everything. From authorities to government structure, all of it is nothing but a shadow of what is in heaven. A mere copy that does not measure up. So when God brings you, the Bible says that it is through the church, which a church is simply this, a community that centers around Jesus. Community of believers. He's like, man, I know that there's a lot of what heaven looks like down there, but there's something missing. I need a portion of heaven down there, and I've got to give it to earth because it's the only way that earth is going to connect back with me again. I need to send George LaGuardia. He needs to be born, and I've mapped his story. I need to send Nosa because I've mapped his story. I need to send Bill. I need to send Courtney. I need to send these people. I need to send Rebecca, and I need to send Noah. These people need to exist as an expression, another aspect of my breath. You know what the Bible speaks about, what our life means? Soul and spirit is the breath of life. You know where that breath comes from? Life doesn't just come from itself. It comes from God. So God he breathed a portion into you that needs to be, he might have breathed it in heaven, but he breathed it in heaven knowing that it would be exhaled on earth. Which leads us to the premise that everything in you, God placed on earth to get out of you. So if you ever thought you're a mistake, if your ultimate hurt and wound comes from people that left you, neglected you, let me tell you, that is painful. But you got to understand that you were not here out of the result of their romantic moment. You were here as a result of heaven looking on earth and saying, Mary Ellen needs to be here. George Girotti needs to be here. That's what heaven saw. And so if you're sitting here going, man, I don't know. I don't feel full. I feel lonely. It's not cutting it. It's not going to cut it. Because you weren't made to just receive things. In fact, God made you in such a way that the only thing you need to receive is his relationship. When you receive perfect relationship, you don't have need for more relationship. Relationship outside of that is something that is synergistic and a blessing, but not a necessity in the corest of sense. Although he created us a community because we all center around him and we become the body of Christ, so to speak, right? But what I'm trying to get to is if you're looking for that Mr. Perfect, Mr. Right, to feel you, to make you feel like, man, I'm complete. Can I just tell you that when Mr. Right comes, he won't be right enough. When Mrs. Right gets there, she won't be right enough. And you might not find out till year 2, 3, or 7, but you've put a pressure and a burden on her or on him that was never meant to be there because God never meant you to have to need and latch and be codependent to somebody. He wants you to be codependent to him. And when you can be codependent to God, all of a sudden you go from being somebody who in essence has parasite nature. You need to feed off the things around you. You go into being somebody who was purposed, breathed on earth to feed the people around you. Your purpose is our goal tonight. Your purpose is our number one objective tonight. That you might leave this place a little bit taller, a little bit more excited about being you, a little bit more happy to look in the mirror, a little bit more understanding, because you got to understand this, that if God is God and the devil is the devil and God's got a plan to use you, then who do you think's got a plan to stop you? And the devil's greatest assault on humanity is hinged around its greatest strength. Identity. If he can mess and muddy and mar identity, he's got you. Because you never sit there on any other issue and go, man, I just can't do this. Why? Because I like the color purple. People that like purple just can't build great things. What? You've never in your, like, man, if I only like chocolate chip ice cream, I could be an entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's so ridiculous. But what you do is look in the mirror and you know what you're lacking. You know what you're not. You know what you need. You know what's not enough. And that enough is measured by what? Somebody else's, who they are. God actually has you for such a time as this. And Jesus understood it when he went to the cross. You say rightly that I'm a king. For such a time as this I was born, it says in John. What if you and I had the connection that Jesus had with the Father, therefore had the revelation and confidence that he could have before people at the right moment? That when people asked him, who are you? He's like, you say right who I am. And not only that, do you know who I am? Let me tell you that for such a time as this, I was placed here. This is your time. Not next year, not the next era, not the past. This is your time. 2019 is your time. 2020 is your time. What will you do with your time? What will you do with what God wants to do? So I want to speak from the subject of purpose, and I want to give you this title. I wanted to preface all of that just to say this. When we're talking receiving issues tonight, we're talking about receiving God instruction. Not a popular subject, because if you're like me, when everyone was like, be a Christian, I was like, no. And the only reason I didn't want to be a Christian is because it sounded boring. Because every other Christian I met was boring. You know what I mean? It was like they got saved from joy, you know? I literally had a pastor once say this to me, you know, like this, same tone. You know, when I go to the theme parks, my family, and then he looks me in the eyes like, I was like, whoa there, getting right into my soul there. When I go to theme parks, my kids have fun, but I don't know what fun is. I just read the word. So now I'm to ascertain that I don't know what fun is because you're so saved. I still have fun. I must be the devil. And the word of God is boring. Okay, we agree. Like what? But in some random way, my encounters were people that went without. Christians were always the lesser. They never had a good life. They never were doing more. It was just always lesser. So I never wanted God instruction. But can I tell you this? If you want to lead yourself to your best day, you need to speak to the one that designed it. If you want to get to your best day, know who designed it and speak to them. Because God designed it and he needs to lead you at your best day. I want to speak out of Luke right now, if you will. It says this, Master, Simon replied, we worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let the nets down again. And this time their nets were so full of fish, they began to tear. Isn't that insane? Because I want to speak this subject from the place of your last loss. Because your lack of faith is not hinged in your last win. In fact, your last loss is still traveling with you. Your greatest defeat, your moment at 14, that very moment where you put out the nets, let's call the nets hope and expectation. When you go out to the ocean, I don't know if you've ever fished, right? But the deeper you go, the more you think you're going to get. You know, like if you're fishing from the perimeter, it's like, lame, we're getting something huge. I remember once, these guys from church were like, you need to go deep sea fishing with us. I'm like, bro, I love that, let's go. I'm like, let's do this. So we get there, and I'm thinking a big boat. Literally, this was a 3-man boat with 8 men in it. Like a guy gets up to cast and we're like, woo, woo. I'm like, you stop. Why are you casting? We're in the middle of the ocean. It doesn't get any deeper. Crazy man. All of a sudden, I get something and we're like, zzz, and we're all like super pumped. And then at the same time, we all stop and we go, do we even want that in this boat? We were like, no. There's something about a big ocean, man, that you just feel like, ooh, we're catching something. But I got to tell you, man, there are days that I've been out in the ocean, on reefs, on everything, and you come back empty. And can I just tell you, in that moment, you go from seeing a sea of possibilities to seeing an empty, barren place. And maybe when you first started life, when you first started college and relationships and this whole Jesus thing, oh my gosh, Jesus, you love me, this is gonna be better. And so it seems like an ocean of possibilities, but after you come up empty a few times, it goes from being an ocean of possibilities to being just a full barren landscape. Let's call nets hope and expectancy, and let's speak to the last time you brought your nets and they came back without anything. That last time you ran at ministry. That last time you ran at healing. That last time you ran at relationship. That last time you ran at purpose, at depression, at anxiety, and you cast the nets, pulled them in only to find the annoyance that we find in this very same place that is presented to us in the Word of God. Because God's Word's now just as powerful as when God was standing there saying it. And we come over to church with our empty nets. And he has the audacity to say, hey, throw them again. I need you to take note. Your purpose is worth fighting for. I need you to take note. Your purpose is not something you turn away from. Last week we read Luke 4, where the Holy Spirit leads Jesus into the wilderness. Full of the Holy Spirit leads him. And I was like, what? Is that an awkward encounter? Like Holy Spirit's like, oh, didn't know he was going to be here. Oh, jeez. Oh, idiot. Oh, so embarrassing. I'm just got one assignment. No. He led him there on purpose, which means you better count on the devil being where you're meant to be. He's not absent. He's not at Chick-fil-A on Sunday wondering why they're not open. Anyone done that? It's at that point where I go, I wish you weren't Christian. Go. Who needs more influence? I want my chicken sandwich. You better know that when you get there, the devil's out there trying to empty your nets. Because he wants you to pull them up empty. Because he wants you to live with a frame of reference that casting is not worth the effort. But it's time that if you're here today feeling empty because you can't fill it, it's time that you learn to throw again. I think there are people in this place and you've actually thrown nets out of season. And now you're like, no, that's just not what I catch. This is what I catch. You ever had that? Why is my life full of? I just seem to attract all the crazies. They all come out around me. I just attract bad things. I attract guys that are just like always cheating on me. I attract girls that are always like just wild. The devil would love you to think that your nets have been designed by his purpose. But you got to understand that sometimes the greatest gift God ever gave you was an empty net. Sometimes the greatest gift God has ever given you has been an empty net. Because what you were fishing for is not what you were made for. What you were fishing for, it wasn't time for. What you were fishing for, you couldn't drag in the boat. And what you were fishing for, God had a bigger thing waiting for you. You got to look at your empty nets, not as a God didn't show up, but maybe a God did show up and showed off and protected and stopped and evaded. Because just because it's empty doesn't mean you shouldn't keep throwing. The crux of the Christian faith is that we'll go again. We're not deterred by the storms. We don't stop at giants. No, the Christian faith is about stepping when it makes no sense. You know what my revelation has been this week? You do not need faith for the reasonable. We love reasonable faith. You know, like, it is reasonable we could get a building, but it has to be a building within this, and maybe we have to lease it first. And it's probably pretty reasonable that I could be a pastor, but it's probably pretty reasonable to do Barcelona, but maybe we've got to do. Can I just tell you this? You do not need faith for reasonable. All you need for reasonable is stewardship, excellence, and strategy. You got to reserve your faith for what it's actually made for. Impossible. It has no other place but the realm of impossible. And by the way, impossible does not have measure. You know, like, well, that's so impossible, but that's even more impossible. That's the impossibilistest. It's like deader. Impossible is impossible. Reserve your faith for what cannot be achieved by human effort. Therefore, you live a life inviting a God move in every single day. You got to cast again. What have you stopped casting from? What are the things that you have stopped throwing out and saying, God, I'm waiting? Some of you aren't even waiting for Mr. Right, and you're settling for Mr. Right now because you're sick of waiting. And maybe the fact that you want Mr. Right so bad is the very reason that God won't bring him. Because God doesn't want to burden Mr. Right with Mrs. Unfair expectations. It's just what it is. You got to throw your nets again. They might have come up empty, but it's a new season. You got to throw your nets again. Every time you throw your nets, it's a commitment that God is true and that the devil's a liar. Every time you throw your nets, it's another commitment to your purpose and a denial that you're never going to reach it. You got to throw your nets again. Second thing is they were found cleaning their nets. It's funny because they were cleaning their nets, and I think that would have been one of the hardest things for a fisherman, because your nets should have smelt like the catch. Should have smelt like victory. Instead, really, they were just getting the salt water off and folding them. I think there's no mistake that you've got to clean out your last losses. I think there's no mistake that you've got to go back and reconcile a few things. And if you don't know how to reconcile, come to our morning service because we're doing a series on it. Just do it, okay? You need to close some accounts with the one that's in charge of all accounts. The Bible says he's the God of the increase. Also calls him the Redeemer, which is everything accounting. He either gets back which was lost, or he gives more to who needs it or who deserves it. So when you reconcile things in your life, when you clean the nets in your life, you don't clean them alone. Who was close by? Jesus. Who changed that day from being a day of losses to a day of opportunity? Jesus. Jesus close enough to be heard. Jesus close enough to actually hear. Jesus close enough to look to. Jesus close enough to actually go by. Like that, they could see him. And because Jesus was there, he spoke to what would have been a day of loss and turned it into a day of victory. If we're going to receive anything, we've got to learn that God's plan, God's actual instruction for your life is where your best day lies. And what I think's crazy is that it was just the other side of the boat. I think some of us are fishing on the wrong side of purpose. We're fishing on purpose because it gives us notoriety. We're fishing on purpose because we want to be known. We're fishing on purpose, but the reality is sometimes the other side is where you need it. Understanding that purpose is about what you give for who needs to receive it. Purpose is understanding that it's a life of service and a life of laying down. If you can lay things down, I promise that God will pick you up. But if you need to keep holding on to things, I'll tell you, God will treat you just like I treat my children that can't give me things they don't get anymore. And some of us keep shaking our fists. But that's the problem. We've made a fist. And if we lived with open hands, maybe God would fill them. Because God will fill something that's open because people can also take from that open hand. A great church is not built on selfishness. A great church can be down to a good service. It can be down to a lot of things, possibly, let's say. But I tell you what, a movement needs people where God is moving within them. We're not going just to Barcelona because it's a cool place. We're going to Barcelona because people need Jesus. We're going to Barcelona because, you know what? I think if God was to look down the earth and go, there is a people, there. They're called People Church. They're wild. They're crazy. They'll go for me. I've seen them cast nets over the last 7 years that have come up empty. I've seen them cast nets of night service. Do you know how many times we cast the net of night service? We cast it over 3 years, 4 different locations, and it didn't work. But I'll tell you what, if he said it, it's going to happen. So you cast again. God's looking for some people that can clean out yesterday so he could use them today. God wants to do something. I just think often he's short on people to do it. But he's not short on patience to wait for those that will. You got to know, God, it says, is not slow to return, but patient that none should perish. He's going to use somebody. There is going to be a move of God in history. My question is this: will your name be associated with it? Will your name be associated with the left side of the boat, purposes for you, purposes for your notoriety? Or will your name be associated with purposes for God's kingdom? That when the world looks back, it goes, oh my God, you don't even understand what started in Chicago. In the darkest city where everybody said the murder rate would never change, something shifted. Where everybody said church can't bridge the gap between the sectors of society that feel ostracized, and they have, that we just didn't think it was possible. When people said you can't buy land in a city, it seemed to be given to them. When people said you can't build a church where young people want to be in, it seemed to happen. And it's not because of magical formula. It's can God search the earth and find surrender, and more specifically, surrendered will. God's patient. People Church, God's patient. In our podcast, God's patient. But all I know is this: I don't want the time and chance to pass me by without my name being associated to the God move that is going to happen. You got to clean out yesterday's defeat. You got to clean it out. The third thing is this: you need a nevertheless mentality. What I find interesting about this is that you're dealing with experts. These are seasoned fishermen. Now, my son is obsessed with fishing right now. Cruise, we started it. We caught a fish in Australia, 2 fish. One was like huge, and then it dropped, and I was like, but it was still good because we caught it, and everyone saw it. It wasn't just a Chris story. Okay, it happened. It happened. But now he's watching this like Brazilian dude that like just does crazy fishing stuff. And now every morning Cruz goes, he gets like rope, like shoelaces. He goes, you know what that is? No, hand line. Hand line. But you know what happens with your hand line? You catch fish, son. If you're not careful, it'll catch your foot, drown. You gotta have a knife handy all the time, Dad. All the time. Son, I'm staying away from knives, okay? Just fully into it, right? And I didn't realize how much knowledge is necessary. In Australia, I grew up fishing with my dad. So I know how to fish in Australia. I got here and I did the same stuff. We didn't catch anything. Because over here in the lake, you got to do all these like plastics and lures, and it's like fishing by, it's just dumb. Take me to the ocean. And that's when I realized fishing is a skill that is learnt, and you can become an expert. You can become an expert at catching. I want to speak to the seasoned Christian. I want to speak to those of you that know church. And mind you, I didn't say God, I said church. Those of you that grew up with Christian parents. Those of you that done the conferences, know the books. And if I say God is good, you know what to say. That's who I'm talking to. That's who I'm talking to, because we get experienced. And the problem is, we love elevating our experiences above God's authority. Isn't that crazy? God created everything. We're like, nope, says it right here. Been through it, tried it. We did a night service. And our assertion, in our expert mentality, it does not work in Chicago on Sundays at all. And we limit God. It says these guys were experts. They were experts. And they chose to forfeit their expertise and live at the word of a God that they weren't fully convinced of yet, because at this point they didn't even know he was the Messiah. Where in your life have you held your experiences higher than God's word? Where in your life are your experiences battling with God's voice? You can't take instruction because you know You've been there. I've seen it. I know better. Can I just tell you right now, that is actual arrogance, and pride does not work well with God. And what I love about it says pride comes before a fall. It also talks about that he's either a stumbling block or a cornerstone, meaning you are either going to trip over the instruction he gives you or build on it. It's your choice. Purpose is waiting for you. A fulfillment that changes everything. It's waiting. But you've got to choose to surrender experience. I feel like the band should be here. I feel like they got raptured. Maybe it's speaking to them, they're crying. But if you could surrender it and let God do it, I know you might be an expert at bad relationships. I know you might be like, man, I know, and therefore I've ascertained all men are horrible. Man, they're not. And not all leaders are horrible. And not all churches will use you. And can I just say, with all those, let's not forget that there's a 50% equation that we're not talking about. Us. Us. We were there. We contributed. I learned something really powerful the last few days. I felt like God just showed me a pattern. Every time I meet someone that tells me everybody in their world was something, you fill in the blank, I find it's actually quite opposite, always something in them. Every time I find someone that says, everybody, always, I've always, the odds are not everybody's wrong. The odds are something in me might be attracting something. The odds are, you know what God did that day? Protected them from going hungry. Protected them from a loss. Protected them from waste. Protected them from a life lived at experience, not faith. What if God's instruction seems crazy to you right now, like an expert? What do you mean the other side of the boat? It's literally here. What do you mean? What do you mean throw it again? We're almost finished cleaning and you want me to throw again? Some of you are just done healing and he wants you to go again. Some of you are just done healing and he's saying, let's do it. Get back out there. But I've just finished. And there's nothing out there but hurt. There's nothing out there but disappointment. There's nothing out there but fear. I've been here. Yeah, but this time, the other side of the boat might look like a people church that is maybe in the same city you did church before, but just for some reason, this is your other side of the boat. Maybe 2019 is the other side of the season for you. Maybe October is. Maybe November is. Maybe this small group leader is. If you don't give the God of new beginnings the ability to do the very thing that he's given a title for, what then? Nevertheless, what if you and I were nevertheless people? That building's too expensive, but nevertheless, we're gonna put our name in the ring. Barcelona's a dark city. Nevertheless, we're going. We don't have a digital following. That's what we usually follow as a method. But God, you said it. I know what it's like to plant somewhere. God, I don't want to go through those 4 years again, but here's the thing with faith. Faith can still, you can throw it. Faith is a journey, but it's choosing to elevate God's word above your losses. What do you have to do? What is God speaking to you through this message that he's telling you need to go again? You need to throw again. You need to clean it out. You need to live it nevertheless. The devil, he'll bind you. Do you know that I was almost robbed of being in the church that gave me freedom because of my past? And this is the way it worked. I grew up in Australia and, there is some prejudice. It's not as bad as probably what it is here. But for me, as a young boy at 14, where you're starting to notice girls and you're kind of goofy, that was me anyway. I had no game at all. I hated all of them. Talking to my wife. But I remember they had a word for us. They call us wogs, right? And it doesn't even matter if you're in most places, but sometimes when it's attached with hate, it really hurts. I remember being just walking through a neighborhood with kids spitting on me, calling me wog. And I thought that their parents would do something, and they came out and joined and cheered. I remember there was riots in our neighborhood because of this stuff. And typically an Australian looks like blonde hair, blue-eyed, green-eyed. Like that's what they look like. That's the typical. I look like someone that doesn't belong there. When people say, where you from? They know that I'm not from Australia, right? And so I show up to this little church called Hillsong. And back then, it was predominantly like your typical Australian. So I need to find healing in the very place that's surrounded with people that hurt me. Was it them? No, that's the thing with projecting. Someone doesn't have to be that person. They just got to have a glimmer of that person, and that's enough. Judge and jury, you're gone. It's funny that the very people that would invest in my life over the next 7 years were the very people that if I saw on the street, I would have thrown a punch at. I grew, not proud to say this, but I'd rather share my losses and my darkest moments than my best. I hated. That's a word I don't use lightly. I knew what I did. I hated. Because I was hurt. Because over and over and over, I was pulled out of line saying, you can't come into this place because of who you are. Like, I hated. And it's funny. I wonder if that was not, and I don't have any backing for this, but I wonder, is the devil so strategic that he saw me at 14 walking into a church of people and he saw what they look like and he thought, let me use them to hurt you. Let me use people that look like that to hurt you. Then let me make you insecure so you're afraid of a crowd. Then let me make you somebody that is afraid to speak up. Then let me hit you with anxiety and depression. I'm gonna do everything that you might not get to your best day. I had some nets to clean out. I had to learn to throw again. I had to learn to get into a group setting again and say something. What do you need to learn again? I just feel this is a God word for some people. Some of you are holding on to the very nets of losses and you're caught up. You cannot get free because of the nets that have ended up entangling you. You're entangled in some of your losses. So much so they've become an identity. Some of you in this room, I really believe this is a God word. I don't do this often. Some of you in this room are holding on to nets and you've been entangled in them and you've made them your identity and you've pushed people out because you're like, if you can't accept me for this, then you don't love me, and you've made it yours. You've made it who you are. And God is saying, you're limiting me because I never made you to be tangled by anything. Notice God, the God of the universe, holds you and he just leads you to freedom. I really believe there's some people in this room and you got to let go of the very thing that's holding you. You got to let God do something in your life and you got to learn to fish again. I don't care if you're an expert. What good are the expertise without the results? I don't want to just be a coach, man. I want to have 6 rings like Jordan. That's what I want. You're more than the sum of where you came from. Can you live at the instruction of God? Can you receive the God word of your life? If you're going to receive the God word in your life, I believe you've got to do those 3 things. Learn to throw your nets again. Clean out your nets. And you've got to be able to live at the power of his word. Nevertheless, I'm going to do it.